Hi! So we're on to the second day of Christmas now. You should have already watched Meet Me Instantly by now if you're weirdly going through this in some semblance of order and watching things, which if you are, frankly, it's a stranger world than I thought. Film number two for the second day of Christmas is I am going to pick Nativity. Now, I know that you probably expect me to put that higher up the list because it's one of my favourites, but there is a method in the madness. I think you should split up into themes what you're going to watch and kind of divide up how they lie so you don't end up with the same thing every single day. So, Nativity. Now, I love Nativity, which is surprising because I hate children. So, a film that is improvised with children on paper sounds like my idea of actual hell, but I love it. And I love it for a lot of reasons. Number one is I love a musical, and I'm classing this as a musical, mainly because they made a musical adaptation of it after the film came out, which stars Simon Lipkin as Mr. Poppy, which is honestly one of the most brilliant pieces of casting ever in musical theatre, and I will fight anybody that says otherwise, because that fella is a comedy genius. So him as Mr. Poppy, like, superb. Um, yeah, so Nativity is about a school that is a comprehensive school, and it has a bit of a rivalry with what is never specifically said, but I presume to be the private school up the road in Coventry. And the rivalry stems from the fact that the teachers were at drama school together, and the teacher of St Bernadette's, Mr. Maddens, had a girlfriend called Jennifer, who it's very heavily implied that the teacher of the private school quite fancied, and she ended up going off to Hollywood to go work in a film studio where they presume she's a high-flying producer and she is, really high up the career ladder. And they meet one day in a garden centre when Mr. Maddens is buying the Christmas tree for St Bernadette's school, and he's took Mr. Poppy along with him to drive the van, pick the tree, help wrap it, what have you. And they get into a bit of one-upmanship in regards to where they are in their lives, these two teachers. And Mr. Maddens says that he is doing the Nativity this year, which he doesn't want to do. He's been volunteered for it. His last one got 0 stars in the local paper. Which, incidentally, what kind of local paper reviews the kids' nativities in primary school? Who are these people? But they do, weirdly, and it's Alan Carr reviewing them, which, stranger still, but it works, let's just go with it. And Mr. Maddens doesn't want to do the nativity because he's been so poorly reviewed in the past. So he ends up having a bit of a to-in and fro-in with Mr. Shakespeare from the private school, and he ends up saying, yeah, we're doing a musical, and Jennifer's going to come and see it because we're still in touch, we're still friends. It's not quite over between us. She's going to come in her Hollywood producer kind of guise and check out our nativity. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, pal. And Mr. Poppy overhears this, runs straight back to school, gathers the kids in the classrooms, and he's like, kids, you're never going to believe it. We're going to go to Hollywood, we're going to be superstars, we're going to be famous, there's going to be a film about us, Hollywood are coming. And Mr. Maddens goes into school the next day, and Mrs. Bevan, the head teacher, has all the press, all like the local TV, papers, all the rest of it in the school hall, and she's making an announcement that Hollywood are coming to St Bernadette's, and Mr. Maddens is like, oh no, we have erred. What do we do? So he goes and tells Mr. Poppy that he's basically an idiot. How are they going to get out of this? But he ends up keeping the lie going because he sees all the kids' faces and they're so excited and so overjoyed, and they haven't got very much confidence because everyone thinks St Bernadette's is a bit of like a rogue school, bit of a rough and ready type place, and he just wants them to kind of carry on feeling good and having the confidence, so he just keeps the lie going, and the longer he keeps it going, the harder it is for him to correct it and tell the truth. So they hatch a bit of a plan to try and get Jennifer to come over after all, and then it'll all be fine. So Mr. Poppy makes a DVD of the kids saying, Mr. Maddens is still in love with you, you need to come over and see our nativity, he's lost without you, he's doing stupid stuff like telling these fibs that you're coming over, please can you come and help us? So I send her this DVD and she is quite moved by it, but she doesn't come over. So Mr. Maddens gets a bit carried away and is like, sod it, I'm off to Hollywood. So he takes a couple of kids with him to Hollywood and goes to this producer's office where he thinks Jennifer is a high-flying producer and finds out that she's only a secretary, which is why she hasn't come over. She hasn't really been in touch. She's a bit embarrassed about the fact that she's not really that high up the ladder when everybody thought she was a high flyer. Yeah, the Hollywood producer is Clark Peters as well, who he actually is like a bit of a West End producer. He put on Five Guys Named Mo a couple of years ago, so that kind of has a little extra verisimilitude in there, which I quite enjoy. So yeah, he gets back to school. He's failed in his mission. Hollywood aren't coming. He's taking the kids out of school without permission slips from the parents because Mr. Poppy's told him a little white lie that he's got all permission from the parents when he hasn't. And so basically Mr. Maddens is in all manner of trouble. And he loses his job. Mrs. Bevan really has no choice but to sack him. And she's really upset and disappointed, and she has to tell the kids that Mr. Maddens won't be coming back into school and they won't be doing the Nativity, even though the Mayor of Coventry has offered them the ruins of the cathedral to do it in, to sort of make it even bigger and better for when Hollywood come. They'll see a bit of kind of old Coventry, and that'll be a bit of good tourist kind of propaganda, I guess, if you like. So yeah, it's all gone a bit badly. And Mr. Maddens is kind of feeling really down, and he goes and gets Mr. Poppy, and he's like, bugger it, let's just put the Nativity on anyway. Let's go down to the ruins, everything's set up, let's just go do this. So they round up the kids, get them to the cathedral, and they start putting on this musical that they've written of the Nativity, and it's basically a traditional Nativity. You know, there's songs in it and everything, but Mary meets Joseph, they go off to Bethlehem, there's a star that the shepherds follow. The shepherds are a boy band, which honestly just is brilliant, and the angel Gabriel's like a really cool kind of almost little Richardy type singer who tells Mary that she's having a baby. And then midway through the musical, there's a helicopter and it lands, and it's Jennifer. She's back in Coventry. She's brought Clark Peters with her, and they get back together midway through this musical. And Gordon Shakespeare is in the audience, and he's like, well, that's that then. Can't really begrudge that. So they get partway through the musical, and the power blows, so they have to have the kids singing by candlelight, which kind of really works, to be fair. Everyone's in awe of that. And then there's this really big finale. And Mr. Maddens and Jennifer are dancing on stage. The critic, Alan Carr, comes up and dances on stage. Mr. Shakespeare comes up and dances on stage. Mrs. Bevan's giving it all this. And Mrs. Bevan's Pam Ferris, and I love Pam Ferris. I think she's brilliant. So her doing all that, I love. And yeah, all's well that ends well, basically. And the music in it is actually really, really good. If you can listen to Nativity as a soundtrack and not get sparkle and shine stuck in your head for weeks and weeks and weeks, there's something sorely wrong with you. So if you watch Nativity and you've never seen it before, I can really only apologise for that, because sparkle and shine is brilliant, and the kids are brilliant in it. Bob, there's a kid called Bob, and he's hilarious because it's semi-improvised. They kind of led the kids where to go with the scene. Right, such and such is going to happen. Say what you want. Bob's a like 6-year-old comedy genius. He's brilliant. He's hilarious. He makes me laugh. Yeah, it's really catchy. It's really feel good. You get to the end of it and you've got a smile on your face. It's just kind of one of those films that, do you know what, it's not trying to be Citizen Kane or anything like that. There doesn't have to be a huge message in there. It's basically Mr. Maddens has done wrong. He's put it right. He's sorted everything out. He's given the kids some confidence, made them happy, put his differences with Mr. Poppy aside and got on with somebody once he'd learned all about them. Got Jennifer back. What's not to love there? And you get to see some brilliant songs. So yeah, watch that. listen to the soundtrack. Listen to the soundtrack of the actual musical because that's actually really, really good as well. And yeah, get Sparkle and Shine stuck in your head and get day 2 done. You'll be seeing it all the way through day 3 and 4, and I can only apologise for that, but tough.